It started as just another podcast episode until Joe Rogan said that one line. Within minutes, what should have been a casual conversation spiraled into one of the most heated on-air clashes we've seen this year. Candace Owens wasn't having it. Her expressions said it all before she even spoke. Pure disbelief, mixed with something that looked a lot like anger. The topic, Charlie Kirk's widow, and a warning Charlie allegedly gave before everything went down. Don't twist his words. Joe, Candace fired back, her voice sharper than ever. But Rogan didn't back off. Then explain it, he said, because if what I heard is true, this changes everything. The room fell silent. Cameras caught the tension like static in the air. Two of the most outspoken voices in media, locked in a confrontation that no one saw coming. And when Candace finally spoke again, her words left everyone stunned. He warned us before it happened. And you know exactly what that means. Since that moment, social media has been in meltdown mode. Fans divided, theories exploding, and whispers that there's far more to this story than anyone's admitting. Something was set off, something that's now impossible to ignore. That all began with a conversation that was never supposed to make headlines. Joe Rogan had invited a few guests to his studio for what was meant to be a regular sit-down, open talk. No scripts, no filters. But when the subject of Charlie Kirk's death came up, something shifted. The tone in Joe's voice turned serious, almost heavy. He leaned forward, his expression thoughtful yet uncertain. You know, he said quietly, people still talk about what Charlie said before it all happened. That he warned someone, maybe more than one person. That line hit Candace Owens like a spark to dry grass. She wasn't expecting it, and the look on her face said it all. The cameras caught the flicker of discomfort in her eyes, the way she straightened her posture as if bracing herself. Joe, she said slowly, there's a difference between warning someone and making assumptions about what he meant. Let's not twist this. But Joe didn't stop there. You've mentioned before that you had long talks with him near the end, he said, keeping his tone calm but firm. Did he ever say anything to you about what he was afraid of? Candace paused for a long moment. Her lips parted, but no words came out. Instead, she took a deep breath and forced a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. He said a lot of things, she replied finally, and not all of them were meant to be shared. That was enough to set social media on fire. Clips of the exchange spread faster than anyone could control. Fans started dissecting every second of the footage, zooming in on her expression, analyzing Joe's tone, and guessing what Charlie's warning could have been about. Within hours, hashtags were trending, people saying there was tension, that there was more behind Candace's careful words. Behind the scenes, things weren't any calmer. Close friends of both started getting calls from reporters asking for comments. One of Joe's producers told a friend that Joe didn't plan to bring it up again. But Candace apparently called the show's team later that night, asking if the segment could be trimmed before upload. They refused, saying it was too late. The raw feed was already circulating online. The next morning, Candace posted a short statement on social media. She wrote, sometimes conversations go in directions you don't plan. But let's not make up stories that never existed. People didn't buy it. The comments section filled with speculation. One user wrote, why so defensive? Another added, you looked scared when he said that. As the storm grew, Joe was silent, not a word from him for almost 24 hours, until he finally posted a short clip on his page with the caption, some people aren't ready for certain truths. Fans instantly linked it back to the clash. Now, everyone wanted to know what that truth was. Then came the podcast follow-up, unplanned, unfiltered, and raw. Joe sat down again, this time with two of his close friends who had known Charlie as well. He opened the show with, look, I'm not trying to stir anything up, but when someone says, he warned us before it happened, I think people have a right to ask, what did that mean? His co-host nodded, saying, yeah, man, I remember Charlie acting strange near the end. He was quieter, more distant. Something was on his mind. Candace's team, apparently, wasn't happy with that. Sources close to her claimed she reached out privately to Joe, asking him to drop the topic. He didn't. Instead, he said on air, I respect Candace, but if you bring something up publicly, you can't act shocked when people talk about it. That one line lit the fuse again. Meanwhile, another twist surfaced. An old interview of Charlie's widow, taken months earlier, started circulating. In it, she spoke about the people who misunderstood Charlie's intentions and mentioned a few who claimed to know what he meant when he didn't even finish his thought. Fans immediately tied that clip back to the ongoing drama. She's talking about Candace. One comment read, she's definitely talking about her. At this point, it wasn't just about Joe or Candace. The internet had turned it into a full-blown narrative. Podcasts were debating who was right, TikTokers were reenacting the argument, and conspiracy channels were spinning theories about what Charlie's final message might have been. Some claimed he had left behind a recording. Others said there was a note that had been kept hidden. None of it was confirmed, but every rumor added more fuel to the fire. Candace went on her own show to address the situation directly. Her tone was controlled, but there was a tightness in her jaw. It's amazing, she said, how fast people jump to conclusions. I'm not hiding anything. Joe knows that. We both respected Charlie, but some conversations were private, and I intend to keep them that way. Still, viewers could feel the tension in her voice. There was emotion beneath the surface. Something unsaid. Later that week, Joe's next episode opened with him saying, "You ever get the feeling someone's holding back because they're afraid of what might come out?" It wasn't hard to guess who he was referring to. Fans caught it immediately, flooding his comment section with fire emojis and captions like, "He's talking about Candace again." By now, both their audiences were divided. Half were defending Candace, saying Joe was exploiting a sensitive moment. Others sided with Joe, arguing that he was just trying to find the truth. One fan wrote, "Joe's not the type to stir drama for views. If he's pushing this, there's something real behind it." As the days passed, new details emerged from people close to Charlie's circle. One friend, speaking anonymously, claimed that Charlie had indeed mentioned a warning in his final weeks, but it wasn't about politics or fame. It was something personal. He felt like he was being betrayed, the friend said. "He told me he didn't trust everyone around him anymore." That statement sent everyone into a frenzy. Who betrayed him? Was it someone in his inner circle, or just paranoia during stressful times? The story was spiraling, and both Joe and Candace were right at the center. The tension between them wasn't just professional anymore, it had turned into something deeply personal. In private, according to people on both sides, they hadn't spoken since the incident. Joe reportedly told his team, "She's protecting someone, and I'm not sure why." Candace, on the other hand, told her staff, "He's playing detective when he doesn't even know half of it." The next episode of her show ended with her saying, "The truth doesn't need defending, it just needs patience." But those words only added more mystery. What truth was she talking about? And why did she seem so certain that it wasn't ready to come out yet? The audience was hooked. Even mainstream media started picking up snippets of the story. Articles began appearing with headlines like Candace Owens and Joe Rogan feud reignites over Charlie Kirk's widow, and fans questioned what really happened before Charlie's passing. None of the outlets could confirm any of the rumors. But that didn't matter anymore. The narrative had taken on a life of its own. Behind the scenes, Joe's production team was reportedly split. Some wanted to move on from the topic, fearing backlash. Others thought they were close to uncovering something worth airing. One producer leaked a quote saying, "Joe's never been this serious about a story. He feels like there's a missing piece, and that missing piece might have been closer than anyone expected." Because just when the online noise began to fade, something surfaced, a short audio clip, supposedly recorded days before Charlie's final appearance, where a faint voice could be heard, saying, "Don't trust the ones closest." The authenticity was uncertain, but it reignited everything once more. Fans demanded answers, and Joe hinted that he'd be addressing it soon. Candace, meanwhile, went completely silent. No posts, no comments, no interviews. Her silence said more than words ever could, and it left the internet wondering if Joe's suspicions were finally hitting too close to home. When Charlie Kirk's widow finally spoke, the internet froze. She didn't post a long statement, no interview, no podcast appearance, just a short video recorded in what looked like her living room. The tone was soft but heavy, her voice trembling as she said, "People think they know everything, but they only know the noise." That single sentence ignited a new storm. Within minutes, Joe's fans claimed she was subtly supporting his side, implying there really had been a warning. Candace's supporters said the opposite, that the widow was condemning everyone for turning pain into gossip. The ambiguity kept the speculation alive, and for many, it felt like the story had taken a turn nobody could have predicted. By the next day, clips of her video were everywhere. Commentators dissected every word, analyzing her pauses, the flicker in her eyes, even the books on the shelf behind her. One popular blogger wrote, "She's grieving, but she's also hinting this isn't over." Then, almost as if on cue, an insider close to the Kirk family leaked an old text exchange allegedly between Charlie and one of his friends. The message read, "If anything happens, just remember what I said about them." The internet exploded. Nobody knew who them referred to, but speculation immediately pointed toward Joe's podcast circle or Candace's media team. Both sides began accusing the other of using the tragedy for clout. Candace went live again that evening, visibly frustrated. She didn't mention the widow or Joe directly, but her words cut deep. "When people can't handle the truth, they start rewriting it," she said. Her tone was sharp, her eyes locked on the camera. Fans flooded the chat with mixed reactions, some cheering her on, others begging her to stop feeding the fire. One comment that went viral said, "Every time she speaks, it just gets worse." But Candace wasn't backing down. She insisted she had nothing to hide and that certain people were profiting off confusion. Many took that as a direct jab at Joe. Joe, on the other hand, addressed it differently. During his next episode, he played the clip of Candace's monologue and paused halfway through. "This isn't about hate," he said, shaking his head. "It's about patterns. Sometimes people see what's coming before it hits." His co-host looked uneasy, trying to steer the conversation away, but Joe leaned in closer to the mic, saying, "You ever wonder why some people get defensive when you ask simple questions?" His tone wasn't accusatory, but the implication was clear. Behind the scenes, production insiders said Joe had tried to reach out privately to Candace, but she refused. A source from her team claimed she felt betrayed, saying, "She thinks he's trying to twist Charlie's legacy into podcast content." Meanwhile, Joe's team maintained that he was just exploring uncomfortable truths. The tension had become a full-blown media rivalry. Commentators from both political and entertainment circles weighed in, with some calling it the biggest feud in talk media since Piers Morgan and Meghan Markle. The widow, caught in the middle, reportedly received hundreds of messages from fans and reporters. Some offered support, others accused her of fueling the chaos. According to one friend, she regretted posting that initial video, saying she never meant to make things worse. Still, she didn't delete it, and that decision alone kept the drama alive. Then came another twist. An anonymous email sent to several gossip outlets claimed that Charlie's final months were marked by growing distrust among his closest allies. Attached were blurry photos of what appeared to be private gatherings, with captions suggesting that certain conversations had been recorded. Though no outlet could verify their authenticity, the story spread instantly. The suggestion that there might be recordings out there reignited every rumor. What did Charlie say? Who did he warn? And why was everyone so nervous about it now? Candace's demeanor began to shift in her next few appearances. Her usual confidence seemed replaced with a subtle tension. She would smile for the camera, but her tone carried an edge. In one segment, she snapped at a guest who brought up Joe's podcast. "We're not doing this today," she said flatly, ending the discussion. Viewers noticed. Clips of her reaction went viral under captions like "She's losing it" and "Candace can't handle the truth." Her team denied she was under pressure, insisting she was simply done with the noise. But behind closed doors, people whispered that the stress was becoming unbearable. Joe's reaction was different. Instead of getting defensive, he doubled down. He began referencing the warning more frequently, often using it as an example of how people overlook uncomfortable information. In one episode, he said, "It's crazy how you can say one thing and suddenly everyone's trying to erase you. Makes you wonder who's scared." The clip blew up, with many fans calling it a direct shot at Candace. As the feud deepened, Charlie's widow reportedly reached out to both sides privately, urging them to stop. An insider close to her said she pleaded for peace, saying, "This isn't what he would have wanted." But it was too late. The story had already taken on a life of its own. Conspiracy channels began dissecting every piece of footage, comparing timelines, claiming to uncover hidden messages in Charlie's old speeches. One particularly viral theory suggested that Charlie had planned to release a statement exposing corruption among friends before his passing. Though completely unverified, the theory spread so widely that even mainstream news outlets began referencing it. Joe refused to comment directly, but smiled when asked about it. Candace, however, called it sick and disgusting. By now, fans were divided into factions, with heated arguments playing out across social platforms. People who once admired both hosts now found themselves choosing sides. Some said Joe was just doing what he always did, asking uncomfortable questions. Others claimed Candace was the only one showing restraint. Even sponsors reportedly began getting nervous, worried the ongoing feud might affect their brands. And then, just when it seemed like things couldn't get any more chaotic, a clip surfaced that nobody had seen before. A behind-the-scenes video from the day of Charlie's final interview, just hours before everything changed. He looked tired but calm, talking to someone off commit. His last words in that clip sent chills down viewers' spines. Some of them already know, they just don't want to admit it. The moment the clip hit the internet, chaos erupted all over again. The leaked clip spread like wildfire, dominating timelines and talk shows within hours. Everyone wanted to know, who was Charlie talking to in that final moment? And what exactly did he mean by "they already know"? Some claimed the voice off camera sounded eerily similar to Joe's, though there was no confirmation. Others insisted it belonged to someone from Candace's circle. The ambiguity was gasoline on a fire that was already burning out of control. By midnight, hashtags like #TheWarning and #They Already Know were trending across social platforms, with users dissecting every frame of the clip, slowing it down, adjusting the audio, and posting endless theories. Joe finally addressed it on his podcast the next day. The studio lights were dimmer than usual, his tone quieter, more serious. "Look, I've seen the clip," he said, "and yeah, it's creepy, but that wasn't me. I don't know who it was. I think people are trying to connect dots that don't exist." His guest nodded, trying to ease the tension, but Joe's face stayed unreadable. "What I will say," he continued, "is that Charlie was worried about something. You could feel it. And I think now everyone's trying to make sense of what he couldn't say." The audience was left divided. Half believed him, half did in single quotes T. Meanwhile, Candace broke her silence again with a new video that was nothing short of explosive. She appeared in a sleek black outfit, the lighting sharp, her tone measured, but icy. "This has gone too far," she began. "You people are dissecting a man's final words like they're clues in a movie. This isn't entertainment. This is real life." But then, almost as if she couldn't help herself, she added, "And for those spreading lies about me being involved or having any connection to this so-called warning, you're the real problem." That one sentence flipped the internet upside down again. Fans accused her of contradicting herself. Why address it if she wasn't implicated? Commentators jumped on it instantly, with one viral tweet saying, "Every time she says she's not part of the story, she makes herself the story." Behind the scenes, things got darker. A close friend of Charlie's widow reportedly received a series of strange anonymous messages, warning her to stop digging and to let the past rest. The widow, shaken but determined, handed everything over to her lawyer. She had already been trying to stay out of the spotlight, but the leaks kept pulling her back in. She allegedly told a confidant, "It feels like someone doesn't want the truth to come out." Her statement only intensified the speculation. One entertainment outlet claimed to have access to unreleased footage from Charlie's old podcast recordings, material that, according to their source, included disturbing insights about the people around him. The report didn't name anyone specifically, but the implications were enough to reignite suspicion toward both Joe and Candace. Commentators debated endlessly, with some insisting it was a setup to discredit one of them, while others believed there was indeed a buried truth waiting to surface. Then, out of nowhere, Joe posted a cryptic message on social media, just for words. "Truth doesn't fear light." He didn't tag anyone, didn't elaborate, but everyone knew who it was about. Candace's response came just hours later, a simple post saying, "Some people mistake obsession for truth." The exchange felt like digital chess, each move more deliberate than the last. Fans of both personalities flooded the comments, creating a digital war zone of theories, accusations, and memes. Meanwhile, insiders began whispering that production staff from Joe's team had been questioned about missing files from an old episode that featured Charlie as a guest. According to reports, several hard drives were mysteriously retrieved. While no one knew if it was intentional or accidental, the timing felt too suspicious. Podcasts that normally discussed politics or culture suddenly pivoted to covering this ongoing feud like it was a true crime series. People began creating timelines, mapping connections, and claiming to uncover hidden patterns in the events leading up to Charlie's passing. Candace, feeling cornered by the endless scrutiny, purportedly began recording a tell-all documentary to set the record straight. Early leaks suggested the film would include unseen footage and exclusive interviews. Her team claimed it would expose how narratives are twisted by those hungry for content. Joe's team, upon hearing the announcement, ALLEGEDLY, doubled down on their own plans to address the truth behind the rumors. It was as if both sides had turned the feud into an unspoken competition over who would control the narrative first. In one of the most talked about moments, a former producer who had worked with Charlie came forward for an interview. Visibly nervous, he said, "Charlie didn't trust everyone he worked with. He used to say there were conversations happening that could ruin people if they got out." The interviewer pressed for names, but the producer refused, adding only, "Let's just say some big names are scared right now." The clip instantly went viral, and within hours, Candace's and Joe's names were trending again. The widow, exhausted by the constant media circus, released a heartfelt statement through her attorney. "This narrative has spiraled beyond recognition." It read, "Please stop turning grief into entertainment." But instead of calming the frenzy, it had the opposite effect. Some fans claimed her words were a veiled attempt to silence the truth. Others argued that she was the only one showing integrity amid the chaos. It became impossible to separate genuine concern from public performance. Behind closed doors, Joe's inner circle reportedly urged him to step back, to move on from the topic. But he couldn't. It's not about gossip anymore, he allegedly told them. It's about principle. If something's being hidden, we owe it to the audience to uncover it. Candace, in her own corner, was said to be furious, telling friends she was done being polite. The tension was now so thick that even those not directly involved, other commentators and influencers, began picking sides just to stay relevant. What made it worse was that new evidence kept appearing. Screenshots, old videos, cryptic emails, most unverifiable. But every piece added another layer to the mystery. Even people who initially didn't care were now invested, hooked on the unfolding drama. It wasn't just about Joe and Candace anymore. It was about the strange shadow of Charlie's final words, the whispers of warnings, and the growing feeling that something larger was at play. Then came the shocker. A voice memo surfaced online, allegedly from Charlie himself, recorded weeks before everything happened. The voice was calm, deliberate, saying, "If this ever reaches you, it means they didn't listen. They went too far." No one could confirm its authenticity, but it sounded real enough to send chills through anyone who heard it. And suddenly, The feud between Joe and Candace wasn't just a rivalry anymore, it had turned into a full-blown mystery. As the tension reached its breaking point, the entire internet seemed to hold its breath. The feud that started as heated words between Joe and Candace had now grown into something much darker. Something that felt less like gossip and more like a political thriller unfolding in real time. New leaks, anonymous claims, and emotional confessions turned what was once a debate into a storm that neither of them could control anymore. One night, during a live stream that would later go viral, Joe decided to speak freely for the first time. There was no flashy intro, no usual humor, just him, a dimly lit studio, and a heavy silence. "Everyone wants me to back off," he said quietly, "but when you've seen the things I've seen, you can't unsee them." His tone was exhausted but resolute. It's not about Charlie's wife. It's not about Candace. It's about the system behind all of it. The patterns, the silence. He paused, then leaned forward. "And if you think it's just coincidence that the same people who tried to shut him down are now trying to shut me down, you're not paying attention." Within seconds, clips from that stream exploded across every platform. Influencers dissected his every word. Journalists called it reckless, and fans declared it the most real thing he's ever said. Candace, however, wasn't impressed. The very next morning, she appeared on a live interview looking composed but furious. "Joe's become obsessed," she said. "This isn't journalism, this is paranoia. He's not uncovering a mystery, he's creating one." Her words were sharp, but her expression betrayed a flicker of unease. What followed was chaos. Private emails between production members of both Joe and Candace's teams leaked online, suggesting there had been secret communication between them before the feud ever went public. One of the leaked messages hinted at a shared understanding about how to shape the narrative. That single phrase ignited a firestorm. Fans began questioning whether the entire feud was orchestrated, a massive publicity stunt gone wrong. Both Joe and Candace denied the allegations immediately, but by then, the damage was done. In a surprise twist, Charlie's widow decided to sit down for her first full-length interview since the controversy began. It aired on a late-night talk show and became one of the most-watched broadcasts of the year. With trembling hands and a calm voice, she said, "I think Charlie tried to warn people about manipulation, not just from institutions, but from individuals too. He believed that once the truth starts leaking, everyone scrambles to protect themselves. Maybe that's what we're seeing now." The host asked her directly if she thought Joe or Candace were part of that warning. She took a long pause before replying softly, "I think they both knew more than they admitted." That single sentence shattered what little peace was left. Joe released a statement soon after, denying any knowledge of hidden motives and accusing the network of editing the interview to stir drama. Candace, however, posted a cryptic tweet the same night, writing only, "Sometimes the truth hides in plain sight." Her followers flooded the comments, demanding clarification, but she never responded. The feud had now become more than just a headline. It was a living, breathing saga that blurred the line between reality and performance. News outlets treated it like an unfolding investigation. Fans turned into digital detectives, and conspiracy channels ran wild with theories that connected everyone involved to larger agendas. In a surprising twist, a former insider from Candace's production team anonymously posted online that several segments from her unreleased documentary had been quietly pulled. The reason? They hit too close to home. According to the post, some footage allegedly showed private exchanges between Charlie's widow and Joe's producer, discussing topics that were never meant to see the light of day. While no proof was ever shown, the rumor itself was enough to reignite the chaos. Joe's next podcast episode took an emotional turn. Halfway through the show, his voice cracked slightly as he said, "People forget that we're human too. We talk, we argue, we try to make sense of things that don't make sense. And sometimes, in that process, we get lost." It wasn't an apology, but it was the closest thing to one. Fans noticed his tone had shifted, less defensive, more reflective. "Maybe," he said at one point, "some truths aren't meant to be chased. Maybe they're meant to be left where they belong." Candace, on the other hand, didn't back down. She launched a fiery livestream later that week, calling out fake apologies and performative regret. "You can't play the victim," she said, "when you're the one who kept fanning the fire." Her words struck hard, and clips from the stream dominated social media once again. The internet split into camps, #Team Joe and #Team Candace, each claiming their version of the truth. But then came the final twist, a file, anonymously uploaded to a forum, containing what was allegedly the full recording of Charlie's warning. Unlike the earlier clips, this version included several minutes of unseen audio. In it, Charlie could be heard saying, "They'll argue, they'll divide, they'll distract. That's how the truth dies in the noise." No names were mentioned, no direct accusations, but the eerily prophetic words sent chills through listeners. For many, it felt like the whole feud had played out exactly as he predicted. That as the frenzy peaked, something unexpected happened. both Joe and Candace went silent. No tweets, no episodes, no statements. Fans were left confused, unsure whether they'd reached the end or if another chapter was waiting to unfold. The silence, in its own way, was louder than all the noise that came before. Weeks later, Joe finally resurfaced with a single post. Sometimes the storm has to pass before you can see what it destroyed. Candace, almost poetically, followed with a post of her own. Some storms aren't natural. That was it. No explanations, no clarifications. And just like that, the story faded, not because it was resolved, but because everyone was too exhausted to keep fighting over what was real and what wasn't. The only thing that remained certain was that whatever Charlie had meant by his final warning, it had left a mark on everyone involved. And for the millions watching from the outside, the line between truth, manipulation, and performance had never been more blurred. And now, as the dust slowly settles, one question still echoes across the internet. What exactly did Charlie mean when he said, "He warned us before it happened"? Was it just a coincidence? A cryptic remark with no deeper meaning? Or was it truly the final message from a man who saw something the rest of the world refused to see? No one knows for sure, and that uncertainty has become the fuel, keeping this story alive. Fans are still dissecting every clip, every post, every hidden detail that could point to an answer. Some believe Joe and Candace's silence speaks volumes, that they reached some kind of off-camera truce, realizing how far things had spiraled. Others insist that both are still hiding something, bound by an unspoken agreement to never reveal what really happened behind closed doors. Whatever the truth is, it's left the public divided, each side clinging to their own version of events. And maybe that's the real power of this whole saga, not the feud itself, but the reflection it created. It showed how quickly curiosity turns into chaos, how easily speculation becomes certainty, and how blurred the line has become between entertainment and reality. As one commentator put it, the internet didn't just watch the drama unfold, it became part of it. Joe has since returned to his usual schedule, carefully avoiding any mention of the incident. Candace, meanwhile, has focused on new projects, though the shadow of the controversy still lingers every time her name trends. Charlie's widow remains out of the spotlight, her silence speaking louder than any statement. And yet, no matter how much time passes, one thing keeps resurfacing, that final warning, that haunting idea that maybe, just maybe, this was all predicted. And so, viewers are left to wonder, was this simply another media storm, or the unraveling of something much bigger? Whatever your take is, one thing's for sure, this story isn't just about three names anymore. It's about how truth bends under pressure, how perception becomes its own reality, and how the chase for answers can sometimes create new questions instead. So, what do you think really happened? Did Joe and Candace stumble into something they couldn't control? Or was this all part of a carefully designed illusion from the very start? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, because your opinion might just uncover the next clue. If you found this story as shocking and twisted as the rest of the internet did, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to stay updated, and turn on notifications so you don't miss whatever comes next. Because if there's one thing we've learned from all this, it's that in this world of secrets and whispers, the truth has a way of finding its way back, no matter how deep it's buried.